online aggregations after Facebook and Google in India, reaching almost 77% of the digital population as of mid this year, according to Comscore data. It's led by the young 35-year-old Stanford alumni and Sameer Jain's son-in-law, Satyan Gajwani, who's vice chairman of Times Internet Limited, along with Gautam Sinha, who's the CEO. And driving a lot of the initiatives is another dynamic senior member of the management, COO Puneet Gupt. Times Internet, in its last disclosure, stated that it had more than 557 million monthly actives and over 110 million daily actives using its digital offerings. Monthly page views were at 67 billion, which is God. I mean, I don't know how many zeros come after that. Its media assets span news, the Times of India and the Economic Times, sports, cricket, buzz, lifestyle, India Times, music, Ghana, video, MX Player, enable platforms, like which are enabling personal finance, ET Money, real estate, Magic Bricks, education, Grade Up, food, Dine Out. And if you go onto their website, there's a host of others properties that they have online. Their products, Gadgets Now, Willow, What's Hot, Speaking Tree, Tech Gig, Miskaira, iDiva, Maharashtra Times, Bangalore Mirror, Pune Mirror. Then there is Ahmedabad Mirror, the blisters NB Navbharat Times, Coupon Dunia, Times Points, Times Card. There's IT, ET Prime, Times Prime. The list is endless. What began around some 10, 12 years ago as a little bit of a dream with this young guy coming out of Stanford and with Gautam Sinha leading has grown into this massive giant. That's what entrepreneurship is all about, and that's what building organizations is all about. Gajwani, now that guy is pretty energetic. He's stated that his intent is to take the company into the $1 billion league and reach 1 billion Indians by 2025. My name is Anil Vanwani. I'm the founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of the IndianTelevision.com group. Our properties include Telechakra.com, which generates 1 billion views a year on the back of around 100 million unique users. There are trade sites like IndianTelevision.com, which is a leader in its space of cable and satellite and broadcast TV, advertising, marketing and media, OTT, content production and distribution. RadioandMusic.com, which is a leader in its space of covering radio and music from the business and consumer perspective. AnimationExpress.com, which is the third largest website globally, covering the space of animation, visual effects, comics, and gaming. We run a range of real-world platforms under each of these leading verticals, which have now gone virtual. The 20-year-old Indian Tele Awards, which is a televised property recognizing the best talent on television, OTT. It's been going on for the past 20 years. The News Television Awards, which we just concluded earlier this month, or actually last month, which recognize the best practices in news television in India. The Ann Awards, which recognizes the toppers in the animation ecosystem, whether it's animation artists, whether it's shows, whether it's broadcasters, whether it's voiceover artists. Then we have the VAM Awards, which are happening next month, which actually not next month, in January, which serve as a pat on the back for those involved in the world of VFX. We also organize summits such as a 1,000 plus qualified and paid participant attended OTT Ecosystem Summit, WinNet, which is in its 5th year, attended by all the leading players in OTT. MX has been a great participant over the years. Then we also run the Content Hub, which sees attendance from more than 1,000 paid participants who want to understand the business and creativity of producing, writing, and directing TV, movies, OTT, and audio shows. Gems is a property we concluded around a couple of months ago. That's games, esports, and more, which brings together game developers, publishers, distributors, esports organizers, brands, and advertisers, and is India's largest gathering for this kind of audience. In my personal capacity, I represent the world's largest content syndication markets like MIPCOM, MIP TV, MIP Cancun, MIP China, Asia Television Forum, Esports Bar for the territories of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, similar to the Times of India, which looks after the Cannes lines. Now, enough of me. On to our guest for the day, Puneet Gupt, the Times Internet CEO. Welcome, Puneet, and thank you for agreeing to come and be a part of this fireside chat.
Thanks a lot, Anil. I'm glad to be on this show, discussing it with you. The stress testing period of Indian ecosystem, so to say, right, during COVID times.
Absolutely. And how are you today?
I've been great. It's been every publisher really thought that this is a time that is going to be very, very troublesome for that. Everyone planned for the worst. thankfully, things for all publishers are working out better than what they planned for, right? And that's a great thing, right? You plan for a weaker scenario, a better scenario emerges. So there is momentum right now building up, and month on month, whether it's all kind of metrics are under control, so to say, and some of them are looking better as well.
Great, good to hear that. And sentiment you said is looking good. How good is it looking?
Very difficult to quantify, sentiment looking good, but I would say that except for the first couple of months of the COVID, when everything was down, so to say, no advertising was happening, markets were down, markets were closed, so to say, right? So when physical movement was curtailed and the lockdown was there, that were the few months of worry, really, and once it started to open up, then it has been a gradual increase, right? Everyone in the ecosystem has seen business improve month on month since then, and I think we are no exception. We may have done some things better, some things worse, but broadly for the entire industry, it's looking up now.
Fantastic. So Diwali, I mean, I thought it was tepid. It wasn't that warm, really. It was pretty. It didn't turn out to be the excitement, have the excitement that we expected. How was it for you guys?
No, I think on the business side, Diwali was good, right?
Okay.
And as I say, it's a culmination of good sequential growth that we are seeing month on month on our businesses. So maybe from July onwards, leaving out the first few months of April and May, revenue has picked up. So it's growing, right? I would be slightly worried about a Q4, but at least with Diwali and going up to December, I see that there is positive traction to build. There are leads for us to still go out and convert. There are deals for us to really take from the table, right? Across all of our businesses.
Okay. So was it good in terms of advertising for you guys, or was it, or did the subscription see an uptick during Diwali? I'm saying this festival, because whoever I've spoken to have told me that it wasn't as good as they expected.
No, I think both on the revenue and the subscription side, that growth is coming. Obviously, on the subscription side, there's a lot to learn as an organization, right?
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. That's another later conversation. Right now, it's about the Diwali phase, which we really expected, it to be a kind of a burst in spending. That burst did not come.
I can summarize saying we had a good Diwali, right?
Okay. Okay, so that means is it the same as last year's Diwali or not at all?
No, I don't want to go to that. It was X point Y percentage growth over last year, but it was better than last year, right?
It was better than last year's Diwali. Wow.
Yeah.
And then, what kind of categories really looked up for you guys?
So it's the same old categories that's looking up for everyone, really, right? There is gaming, there is OTT, there is ad tech, and on the video side, there is FMCG. So there's nothing new for us that's different from anyone else, right? It's just being at it all the time, doing the right things that allow you to really build it up on the digital side. And frankly, because some other mediums have seen a degrowth for reasons.
Last year. Wow.
Yeah. There has been
what kind of categories really looked up for you guys? 1 second. What is going on here? Why is there an echo? Hello? Hello? Are you there? Puneet, are you there?
I'm there.
Great. There's some echo coming. I think Saif was playing the video on the site. Okay. So it's coming up.
Yeah, some echo with a lag of audio.
That's right. Yeah. So continue. Yeah. So you were saying the same categories that everyone was seeing an uptick.
It's the same categories, right? What you were able to pick from the market was your readiness on those categories, so to say, and your ability to deliver on those categories. But in essence, same categories for everyone, similar rebound for everyone. I talk to my peers in the industry, and frankly, no one has said that they are seeing this year to be very, very different from what or way off from last year, right? That pickup has started. The pickup is continuing, and fingers crossed. We hope this momentum to continue.
Okay, so what has changed as far as advertisers are concerned? You're saying, despite there being customers not really going out and spending, I personally haven't gone and really shopped, apart from a little shopping, or nor have I been actively shopping online. And I belong to the category which would be spending a lot.
Yeah, so as I said, right, EdTech has been a big spender, OTT has been a spender as well, gaming has been a spender, as well as a lot of digital only products and services, right? You could get a delivery of a product from e-commerce, which is a physical delivery, right? Your order is digital, delivery is physical, as well as all goods and services where the order and the delivery was digital, right? So if you're buying an insurance product, for example, right, the delivery of that is digital. Stuff like that. So those are the industries that really picked up and led the way. And there are others that are following. And as I was saying when we got a small interruption, is that obviously we were helped by movement of shifting of budgets, right? Budgets have shifted from some other forums, some other mediums to digital. I personally think, in my view, it's a short-term move. I think it will be more even with a slight lift for digital, not the 30-40% lift or shift that we are seeing right now. But maybe it ends up or stays at about a 10% higher shift, and then it goes back to the relevant medium from which it came, as those mediums pick up their distribution again, their velocity again, their momentum again.
Okay. In terms of, especially during this period, what has been working well? Is it display? Is it video? Is it you started that web stories content? What is, you've got your M360 and Colombia. What's been the shining star for you guys?
So, Anil, interestingly, what's working is a relationship with our customers and our agents.
Okay.
We have seen that everyone who did not invest in those relationships and moved to purely programmatic are the ones who are saying that revenue is lower and it's not matching up. But everyone who had invested in those relationships where you were on the table when the discussion was happening, right? That is where you've been able to pick up the money. So a bunch of growth that we have seen is on native advertising.
Okay.
Then there was a lockdown, when there was no deals happening, but brands were still investing to be on the top of the mind recall, right? So that is one area that has grown significantly for us in these 6 months' time. Display is always under pressure because the inventory is growing multifold, and advertising is not moving as much to digital as the inventory growth. It's moving, but it's not catching up with the inventory growth. So display is under pressure, but what's growing is the videos. What's growing is native, right? Those are the two areas that are growing well for us.
Okay, and how are you reorienting the company to be able to deal with this shift?
So I don't think reorienting is the word that's true for us. I think we are doubling down on what we are already doing. So as an organization, we always said that programmatic is good. It gets us some revenue. It gives a lot of transparency to the buyer, but a one-on-one relationship with our buyers is important. And that's the reason we have large sales teams. When some other publishers are actually reducing their sales teams or doubling down on programmatic, we are saying, well, we welcome programmatic, but we want to double down on our direct sales teams, right? We want to double down on relationships. We want to double down on people-to-people connect, because ultimately that's where we can sit on the table and solve a problem, right? When you get money from programmatic, the decision has been made, the allocation has been made.
Yeah.
And a Times of India on that table can only be as good as a Santa Banta or any other publisher, which is not a core news publisher, so to say, right? But when you sit on the table, you talk about brand, talk about brand safety, you talk about the environment and the context in which the content is being read, and that's the most important thing.
Okay, so in your case, you haven't slimmed down your manpower. Have you maintained it? Have you slimmed down? Are you expanding? What is your perspective since you've had a reasonably good time this year?
So we had taken some measures early on in anticipation, but really we have given back our salaries are back to original levels. Our variable pays have been paid out, and we are focusing for the next year really.
Which is hiring or not hiring?
So selective hiring is going on. So at the right places, hiring is going on to really build up for the coming year as well.
Okay, in terms of where have you seen the maximum engagement coming in across this massive, you have transactions which can happen across Men's XP and all your other things. Then you have news, you have entertainment. Where have you seen the maximum? And then you have video through MX Player, originals, you have acquired content, then you have your Ghana, which has 185 plus million users. Where have you seen the maximum traction coming in?
So obviously that maximum traction is on videos, but there is a story behind it, right?
Okay.
When the pandemic first came, people were interested in finding the facts behind what's happening. So
Okay.
they were gravitating to trusted news, trusted brands where could get that advice. And then we saw 30, 40, 50% jump on our news properties in terms of both users and engagement.
Okay.
And I could see distinct peaks in that usage every time there is a semblance of a peak in numbers, right? So whenever there is a COVID induced either an anxiety or a fear or a desire to get more information and build it out nicely, and understanding what's going on, that's when we are seeing peaks on our news and content properties. Now video is very important. At this time when COVID happened and the lockdown happened, right? No new content was getting created in the entertainment space. So
sure.
No movies were getting released, no daily soaps were getting shot. The beauty is that OTT had a library of content.
Sure.
And users got attracted and got drawn to that library of content. OTT has seen a lot of growth for us. MX daily has seen 5-6x growth on time spent and streams, and about 10x growth on the originals that we have done. Some of our originals, very painstakingly made with a lot of love, have done very, very well. Whether it's Ashram 2, or some of the shows that MX have done have been very successful.
On the audio side?
On the audio side, also there is engagement and growth. It's not of the level of what we are seeing on the video side.
Okay. Any reasons? Have you got any understanding on that?
No, because audio as a habit did not get impacted because of pandemic, right? So there you are on a long universal cycle of growth. You are not seeing an up or a down behavior because of the pandemic. These are the two things where pandemic had an effect to play, a role to play. Right?
Okay, but Ghana was anyway amongst the top platforms in the country, way ahead of all the others, right?
Absolutely.
So how has that been impacted if there's been no growth? Has it degrown or has it stayed consistent? Or
no, there is growth. I'm just saying that there is no outlier growth the way we are talking about, multiple X. There is significant growth. There is significant growth, but I would not say it's like 5x growth like there is on video side.
Okay, now during this period, you actually, reaching almost 77% of the population, all your properties put together, 77.7% as against Amazon, which was a little lower according to Comscore at 76%. This was mid this year. Google was, of course, 98, and then Facebook was 94.9. How has it changed post that, the reach?
So, we can see how it moved on Comscore. I'm sure there will be months where we may be 3 or 4. Okay. I don't think we are tracking that for a pride perspective, right? What we are doing is to make sure that each of our properties is doing the right thing for their consumers and customers.
Okay.
And we think that the numbers that you see is a side effect of all of that effort that we put into our properties.
Okay.
And the number that actually you see is a deduplicated number across businesses. It's not an additive number of our properties, so to say.
Okay. Basically, I was going through your financials which were released. Your fintech MAUs are around 0.3% of the total, but they contribute 22% to revenue. Entertainment and news contribute 51 and 45% of your monthly actives, while revenue-wise, they deliver 31.7 and 31.2%. So what will help you monetize your traffic, whereas you're doing brilliantly with your fintech side? What will help you deliver more revenue out of these to entertainment and news?
Right. So if you would have seen media businesses of sorts, right, and even indiantelevision.com, you would realize that ARPU in these businesses is slightly lower. You would get larger base of consumers and they would convert at a lower ARPU. However, on the fintech side, your base will be lower, your ARPUs will be higher. So if you look at all of these properties, in the beginning, you named a bunch of properties that Times Internet works on. How are we connecting these properties and building across them? Anil, hope you're there. I see the video frozen, Anil. I'm sure you are there.
Apologies for that. We have a power breakdown in Guwahati, so I'm just using my phone now. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, hi Anil.
Puneet, are you there?
Yeah. So what we are discussing before the.
Hello.
I'm there, Anil. Can you hear me?
Puneet, are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm there.
We lost activity now.
I'm there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fully well. I can hear you. Continue, please. I can hear you. Can you continue, please?
Okay.
Hello.
So, I was saying that we work on a concept of a flywheel, and all of these properties that you talked about are internally connected, so to say, with a technology flywheel that tries to move users from a low ARPU, high reach kind of a product to a high ARPU kind of product. And that's where all of the tech that we have built over the last 5-6 years comes into play. As on the platform side, right? We think that all of this tech constitutes a platform where we have a common identity of a user across businesses and common ad tech and loyalty products. And that's what goes around really driving the flywheel. That's where the success of a product, a company like Times Internet is based on. Across products, how can you give the leverage of the reach of TIL? If you start a new product tomorrow, can you take it, if it's a media product, can you take it to a 5 million users over a month, which other companies would take a whole lot longer and then would have to make a lot of investment? How can you leverage the learnings that you have about your consumers to make better product and tech decisions and content decisions, right? So that's the tech part of TIL that's not visible outside. Internally, we say that we are in equal parts a tech or a media company, or a tech company that has media as an asset. And that's a transformation that we think we have done from being a media company that had tech as a delivery engine to being a tech company that has media as an asset.
Sure. I mean, that's great. So you see tech as your heart. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you.
So tech is at your heart. Yeah, tech is at your heart. I'm going to keep the video off, and I'm going to just go with my audio because bandwidth here is limited. So serving and because of the scale that you have, you can easily launch something else and grow that. But subscription has been a bit of a challenge for you compared to the 557 million users actives. You got barely 2 million who started paying for your products. So isn't that a bit of a challenge? And how are you going to get that to scale up? Because in India, the potential, the tendency to pay is limited.
So I don't think 2 million is a challenge. 2 million, I think, is a big success because we started this only a few years ago, and then it's something that all of us are learning, right? You don't have experts on some of the pieces of tech or product or the critical thinking that goes behind all of this. So we are experimenting and we are learning and we are building it out. I think the logarithmic part of our growth is just ahead of us. We think that in 4 to 5 years time, about 3 to 5% of our users would be paying us in some form or the other. So we are building for the long haul, and we are building consumer products across the ecosystem. Our offering is not just a content offering, right? It's a paid offering that can cut across multiple parts of our ecosystem as well as the external ecosystem, right? So we are building a product that India would love to buy and love to renew. That's the most important thing.
So you're looking at about 30 million paid subscribers going forward. Because Satyan says, that's a company target is $1 billion by 2025.
Right. In that range, right?
Wow. And then the ARPUs we are looking at on an average of about what? $100 a year, $200 a year? So because his target is $1 billion in revenue.
Yeah, so our ARPUs today are going to be much higher than these numbers, but we understand that as the product makes a wider appeal, we'll have to create variations, and then the ARPU of the product is going to come down. But I don't think it will be 100. It still be somewhere between 500 to $1,000 range at that large base. Today it's even higher than this, but then at that large base, I assume that if we can be between 500 to $1,000 on a paid user per year, it is going to be a good outcome.
Fantastic. I mean, that's per annum, right? You're talking about average revenue per annum per user, or is it per month?
No, per annum.
Okay, so okay, great. So in terms of have you seen a change in that in the last 6 months? Now that we are in December almost, we are in December. Because June had a specific kind of scale up, and now between June and December, has there been a further change?
So as I said, all of these things are linked. That there is a mindset of a consumer, right? And when you are in a mindset of fear and you're worried about outcomes on the job side, on the health side, on what's happening to your relatives, what's happening to the country in general, you would be skeptical about making a lot of spends, right? But we have seen that over the last 4-5 months, those spends have come up again. So we are making larger per month conversions into our paid products than we were doing before. Okay. And also because when the pandemic hit, we had to reconstitute our Times Prime product. A lot of constituents of Times Prime were linked to going out, like an eating out, like a gymming out, right? That entire product composition had to be changed from a home kind of an offering, right? So that also took some time. So, but then as I said, that built up is again there. We are at a number that we are comfortable with per month, and we will exit with a significant run rate this year.
But products like Dine Out would have been really impacted unless they were, you can't book tables. You have to actually, there's a Zomato, there's all the other products out there. So how did Dine Out pivot?
No, honest to say that Dine Out got impacted. Honest that Crickbus got impacted because there was no cricket, right? But cricket is back. Absolutely. And restaurants are opening up. But what each of our teams did, in this case, Dine Out, is that they created a new product during this time, which is a contactless dining suite. So if you go to a restaurant now, very likely that you'll find a Dine Out contactless, dining product there, right? So you can scan and order on the phone, and then you can pay on the phone, not needing to touch anything that's inside the restaurant except your own food. So that has now opened up a new line of business, right? With the same captive restaurant base that you had, now you can deploy this contactless dining suite and build out a business there. But even on the Dine Out side, so that it's going to get better. We will be about, I think, 70% recovery of the business by March, or even slightly higher, is not out of the question right now.
So we are expecting, rather than further lockdowns like has happened in England, like has happened in the in several other European nations, where things are being clamped down, going out is being restricted, pubs are being shut down in England. We're not expecting a scenario like that to come out in your model of the world. So
nothing is impossible, looking at how it's all going. But our forecast will be more like controlled night curfews, so to say, rather than a full-scale lockdown.
Okay. Yeah. So now, where are the new users going to come from? You had about 107 million users coming on last year. Now, where are the new users coming? As far as all your properties are concerned, your language, your English, and your shopping properties. Again, that's an issue in terms of your GMV. Is that really going up, or is that needs to go spike further?
Everything needs to go further up. Where do we get new users? That's an interesting question, right? Where do we get new users in English? Where do we get new users in Indian languages? On English, we touch a whole bunch of customers who come for trusted news on TOI. We have to scale that effort, and then between English and Indian languages, see how can we reach a tier 2 market better and a tier 3 market better. And on English also, there is a depth of content on the non-news side of things, right? On news, there is a lot of content, but if you start to see the demand supply gap of content by a genre, right? You will see that there are white spaces that exist. And then, we will have to build out on those white spaces to say that this is the market potential for this vacant space, and if we can go ahead and build it out, what will it start to look like, right? Look at how India is changing devices, for example, and then in response to that, we launched a gadgets now. Similarly, we'll keep on looking at open spaces and keep on figuring out products. It will help us in two ways. A, users who are not coming to Times Internet bouquet of products or the platform will start to come because we'll find new customers. Second, that we are now solving another need of the same customer. So the relationship with the customer becomes stronger. Our ability to influence the customer and the customer's view of us in terms of what we are offering, both of them starting to improve. So that's how this entire built up will happen. Built up of a videos product is natural. It's growing. The built up of content product, I've just talked about how that is going to happen. So there is a model around in the mind right now on how each of these will continue to grow.
Yeah, but there's a lot of cash burn in some of these spaces without the return coming in quickly. So it's going to hit you or hit your bottom line going forward, right?
So as you know, some of these products on the digital side need a lot of investments, but I think we are behind. The peak investment cycle for us is behind us. Even on the video side, where cost of content production was very high earlier, right? 2 years ago, if you look at it, there were no real OTT content producers, and that the small bunch of talent that was there was deployed 200% times of their efficiency as well as their effort, and the cost was high. Now I think those curves are beginning to stabilize. So
Okay.
yeah, as I said, some of these things will need the cash where we will fund them appropriately, but a lot of our businesses will get into the cash generating kind of a phase, and that's where we'll be able to ably fund the remaining businesses from them, apart from any partner help that we may need.
So, but do you expect your investments into video to continue in a reduced manner, more cost efficient manner? But the investments, because Amazon's going to spend big bucks, Prime Video that is, Netflix is going to spend big bucks. Disney has announced its intent to really focus more on digital video rather than on linear television to that extent, even in India. While of course Star and all will continue, Z5 is looking at that space. So it's a competitive space, and going by Times of India, the group, Bennett Coleman and Company's past experience, they missed the television really in terms of they had the first mover advantages in the early 90s to actually get into broadcast with Warner Media, distribution, etc., DTH, but they didn't really get into the GEC side nor in any of the other spaces. So how are you going to deal with that onslaught? Because that's going to be a big one, and you're an A-ward rather than an S-ward.
So, see, if you have followed Times Internet, our philosophy is that if we are not in top 3 in any product line, we want to quickly take corrective actions, right? So in a product where we are a market leader right now, we will not let that position slip for want of investment. We will make the right amount of investments needed both on the growth side of the business, whether the growth comes from doing fresh content and more originals, or that growth comes from doing a lot of distribution partnerships, or growth comes from consumer acquisition, or growth comes from a product like TikTok, right? We are committed to the success of MX Player, and we will put the weight behind the product.
Yeah, there's another audio. You have another user-generated product for Ghana, and you have another user-generated product like TikTok. How have those been shaping up?
So both of them right now are seeing growth, and that's also partly because how the ecosystem is shaping up, right? Every day there is some void getting created, and the users need to find a product that fulfills their desire. But also both of these products are built nicely, so they are built for the long run. And see, unlike a web product where a user moves between products and between sites, app products are more loyal. App users are more loyal. Sorry. So you have to build that experience for them inside the product, and that's when there's a product inside Ghana, there's a product inside MX. We are building out both.
And then what's right with these products? Could you share that? From the user perspective.
From the user perspective, I personally think there was an inherent desire for a large part of the country to express themselves, something that all of us ignored. And some of these products that came from China actually taught us we all thought that Indians are consumers, we are not producers. That was the tier one mindset of being on Facebook, and we saw that to every one producer there are like 100 or more consumers. But the mindset of the rest of the country, which had not seen this, which did not have an opportunity to come and speak, and which had the aspirations to become a star and follow their own role models, that aspirations are always underserved. And that is the fulfillment of this aspiration that's leading to the large increase in adoption of these products.
Okay, so between OTT and user generated, because when you're going to start scaling up further and further, both are going to require huge investments. Your Times Now, your Times of India, ET Money, and all of those products don't require so much money. They're not guzzlers unless you're shifting them to video. So more and more video. So where is the money going to go? Then you have games.
That's where some of our flywheel comes into picture, and a lot of the tech that we're building. Can we move 100 million users from that 550 into a new product? If the entire science and intelligence that we are working on, and then we are improving that intelligence that we have built, right?
Okay, so basically it's that humongous, but that 550 million gets to a billion, then you launch any product, you can easily swing it and make it a success. Is that the philosophy?
Absolutely.
But if you have the ingredients in place.
Absolutely. The philosophy is really based on understanding of the consumer. What does the consumer really want? And have a product that is built around the needs of that consumer so that the adoption is easier. So a user who is like
then on the
mutual funds on economictimes.com is a prospect for ET Money. How can now I connect ET.com mutual fund research section with the ET Money transactions of mutual funds and make it seamless, right? So reduce the friction between this transition. That's where this growth is going to come from, right? So the tech is going to fuel this growth. Tech is going to make sure that all of our businesses grow on the back of the user base that we already have. And that's where, our best minds are right now working on.
And also on the transactions, with the transaction spaces, especially shopping on men's XP, IDVA, that's a very competitive space where you have standalone companies which are targeting that. So, will you be able to scale those up too?
Absolutely. If you look at how MX or IDVA or ILN has worked, we think that we have cracked that science of virality and converting content to commerce. And, for the last few years, there's a time that when the algorithms had not changed, some of these properties were nearly on top of the virality chart, every global virality charts, right? So we think we understand the psychological nudge that's needed. And that's where I say, it's the learning that you create out of your interactions, out of every interaction of a consumer and the page or the site. What is your takeaway? And that's when I say, most media companies and most publishing companies have to be tech companies first, because otherwise the model is going to be disrupted. And that tech really helps us to say, okay, this is the customer who is likely to buy this at this point in time, so you with the right nudge to make that purchase.
So that makes sense why Gautam is a CEO, being the CTO as well, if I'm correct. Or he began from that's where the drive is coming.
Absolutely. No, we think that
how many
that took that cultural shift at the right time. When Gautam and Satyan got together about 2012, and that transformation started. That transformation has led to what we are today, frankly.
When you started thinking of yourselves as a tech company, not a media company.
Absolutely,
Is that?
That's right.
Okay. Well, on the other side, you have your Times Now properties also growing on digital. So can those be synergized? Or are they being synergized to, kind of help each other out?
So where the support is on the capability and the competency side, really. And
Okay.
I think what Times Now Digital has to solve is the expectation of a user who is glued into their brand of journalism, right? So the
Okay.
what they do as a brand is different from what a print does as a brand, and then what digital does as a brand. So their offering has to be to their customers, and our offering has to be to our customers. Obviously, as an organization, a larger group, we will find synergies, at some point in time, which are more learning synergies, right? Not bundling synergies, so to say.
Okay, so now data privacy is an issue in terms of publishers in India. How are they really aligning themselves in this changing world, as far as the Times of India group is concerned, and Times Internet is concerned, more specifically?
So four things are very important, right? One is that you have to respect user choice. You are building a business for your users. You're dependent on your users. You can't create a value proposition that goes tangential to the user choices. So if the user is happy in giving consent for data, then you can collect data in the measure and the manner that the user is interested in, right? That brings me to the second point of informed consent. You can't cheat a consumer into collecting data, right? You have to learn to receive data and not to collect data. Receiving is when someone is giving. Collecting could be without knowledge or with knowledge. And the right to be forgotten. The last is that once you collect all of this data, you have to be a worthy custodian of this data, right? If I'm giving data to Times of India and suddenly I'm getting an SMS from some other provider, that's not fair. So we think that as much as I've talked to you about our intelligence frameworks, it's all built on data, right? So we
Absolutely.
we have learned how to handle data with care, and we will continue to do that. In terms of whatever frameworks come, whatever regulations come, we will welcome those regulations because it's working together with our consumers, right? If someone wants to buy a car, and I can show them an ad to buy a car, that's really content for them. But if I show a wrong ad, it's distraction. Now you want to buy uh, a expensive luxury vehicle. I'm showing you an ad of a two-wheeler. That's distraction. But if I'm showing the right ad at the right point in time, that's content. That's enablement, right? So how can I put all of this together? The need of data to do this, the guideline to prevent misuse, users' choice, and deploying the data across the ecosystem for personalizing content and personalizing advertising, right? That's the holy grail. And all of this needs to be connected beautifully in order for this model to work. One of these breaks, the trust breaks. The trust breaks, the regulation becomes stronger because the regulators believe you're not doing the right thing. That means something is broken and there is a need for a regulator to come in, right? So
Yeah.
So I think we believe that we have been worthy custodians of data. We want to make sure that we continue to build meaningful experiences based on our learnings, and we want to make sure that our knowledge of data creates meaningful experiences and not obtrusions to consumer behavior on our sites.
Yeah. So, like you were talking about regulators, we are seeing a lot. No, not just in India, worldwide. There's some amount of a layer of regulation coming into online content, whether it's OTT, whether it's news. The government recently said that 26% FDI is allowed into online news data. Below that, it needs clearance. It still needs to be reported. Above that, it needs clearance. But the MIB has become the major overseeing, regulator for this sector. And not just in India, across the world, a similar wave is coming. So, what does it foretell for this industry?
So I would split it up into a couple of things, right? Look at some levels the industry is already regulated, and how is it regulated, right? The first level is the laws of the land. There is IPC, there is CRPC, there is a framework inside them on what I can do and cannot do as a publisher, right? The second level for a publisher like Times of India, who draws a bunch of its content, a bulk of its content from, let's say, the print ecosystem, where they have a PCI set of guidelines, and the TV ecosystem, where they have an NBSA. That is the second layer of figuring out that we do the right things. The third layer, really, is the intermediary guidelines. So there is a guideline on what I can do. There's a guideline what third party people can do on my site. And the fourth layer is what, meaningful and the right set of journalistic organization do inside their newsroom. I believe that's where the most regulation happens, because we have someone to collect the news at source. That's a reporter. We have someone to review it, and there is an editor in the newsroom. There are editorial processes that ensure that, we don't mess up some of these things, right? So in my mind, there is a right level of care being already taken. Now, does the industry need a set of guidelines? I don't think so, frankly. In fact, the right organizations will always get together and create that. So the participants of DNPA have already gotten together and created a code of conduct. We have published the code of conduct on our sites, that say that we will stay within these guidelines when we operate. So that's already done, already taken care of, in my mind.
But somebody doesn't believe it, that what we're doing is correct, and they need to, one, control investment coming into this country in news, so that there can be more, more control on that area. The government doesn't, the right wingers don't believe that really what we're doing is enough.
I think there is a need to engage, so that either party can talk to each other, and then figure out. We would want to convince some of the work that we are doing is in the right direction, and obviously, we don't mind hearing out on what they have to say. But we strongly believe that under the framework that we have, right, there are sector specific guidelines as well. How do you report X, how do you report Y? And even in organizations where which we don't have a print heritage or a TV heritage, so to say, right, it's the same set of journalists who have moved from one of these organizations, who understand the guidelines and the journalistic conduct, right? So unless there's a malintent, right, malintent is wrong. Unless there's a malintent, I think processes are set, guidelines are set, newsrooms are operating the way they have to operate.
Okay, then on the other side is other content, the OTT content side. There's news and there's OTT content. I think there's a fear on the regulator's part that, or the government's part, that something is going wrong on both sides.
Right.
I know you said there are checks and balances, but again, on the OTT side, they're not very comfortable.
Right. And so frankly, on the OTT side as well, some of what I said holds true for them, like the laws of the land. Beyond that,
sure.
The OTT players have worked with IAMI to create a self-regulatory framework, right? Where there was a need, they got together and they've created something now. And then I think that industry is responsive and responsible. They will work together to do what's right. Ultimately, we want the industry to grow. We want that adoption to happen, right? It's a new industry, so to say. While it's seeing rapid usage, but if you see the years of inception, so to say, of this industry, it's a fairly new industry. It needs regulations to grow. And it will be extra careful to make sure that they don't do anything which stops that growth, right? We want people to convert. We want people to come and adopt OTT. We want people to be, binge watching on some of those shows.
Sure. So you don't see the 26% being a little thorn in the side of the industry. It's just a matter of putting in place certain standards which people would follow, that that informing the government of what's going on, informing the regulator of what's going on, rather than it being a curtailing tool.
No, I think it has brought clarity, because earlier there was no clarity. And I personally think that, as long as it is same for everyone, every participant in the industry, there's a method to work with it, right? Obviously, there will be desire for an X or a Y or a Z kind of a change, but then those desires will always be there, right? But as a framework, as long as it's equally applicable to all participants, I think there is a way to work with it.
It doesn't impact any of your investments which you have in Ghana or any of that. It will not have an impact.
No, it doesn't impact any of our investments. And any new guideline that comes up, we'll find a way to work under that guideline. Right?
Sure, fantastic. I think we've spoken enough on that front. Now, coming, as you're a hub for tech product generation. You've acquired M360. The co-founder is working with you guys. You've got Colombia. How is that working out as far as publishers are concerned so far?
So we have actually built M360. We didn't acquire M360. We have built M360.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah. So for the last 4 or 5 years, as I said, we have been working on a bunch of components. Whether it's our own content management system, whether it's the AI or ML algorithms for a lot of work that we do, or on the ed tech side, where we think there's a large vacuum of right technology being available to the publisher. The advertising technology today is uh, heavily favoring the buyers. It's built for the buy side. It's not really built for the sell side. So as a publisher who has a lot of interest in this ecosystem, we started to invest in it. We built out our Columbia ad tech engine, which is an ad server, which also has a data management platform, which has multiple kind of algorithmic insights that come, and then there's a real-time bidding on every impression. So all of that has been built. So we said, why don't we bring it together for the larger ecosystem, right? So we put the best of our content management abilities, and we put the best of our advertising abilities, and then created the M360 suite. As we speak, M360 would have close to about 80 or 90 publishers on board, maybe, and that traction is growing fast. We think that we will be a few hundred in 6 to 9 months time on the M360 platform itself. So that brings me back to something that's very close to my heart. Media companies today need to be tech companies. It's very easy to be toppled, to be thrown out, to be not knowing how the next wave of change is going to affect you, right? It's like saying a cyclone is coming and you're not even aware of how the cyclone is going to hit you. So every media company needs to have that tech mindset. Whether you build or buy or partner is a number two kind of a question, right? The number one question is, are you ready to understand what's happening and how this change is going to affect? Lot of discussions on third party cookies, right? How will they affect if, as a publisher, you don't have your first party data? How will you continue to build a revenue line? Revenue will move to everyone who has first party data, right? If you don't have your own first party data, you will start to lose revenue, and then you will be then competing in that space of lowering your ECPMs every year because you want to at least make sure that your P&L looks healthy. So some of these things are very important. We think that this setup is now ready on the M360 side. We would love for publishers who are not there on M360 to really come and adopt M360, so that that they get into that cycle. They understand page loading is important, not just for SEO, also for their revenue. Because if your users are bouncing back, if your ads are not loading, if your render rate is poor, everything behind is running on algorithms, right? You may have the best audience, but if the ad is not rendering, you don't get the advertising, right? So advertising so much has become a hardcore tech play. And then to play that game, you need to be knowing the rules, right? So that's where this product is there, and that's the reason it's getting the pickup that it's getting. It's been about only 6 months that the product is live, and being able to onboard and be running happily with so many customers is a testament to the need gap that we are trying to solve today on M360.
Okay, so you said something earlier. You said that a media company has to be a tech company. Are we seeing that happening in the Indian landscape, or is the rest of the media sector still thinking media?
So I would say at least 20-30% of large media companies have started to think around that. Obviously, everyone's ability to invest is different, but they understand and they're making the right choices, right? So and choices are not always to build. Choices could be to partner, to acquire, to leverage a third-party product. But at least they are in that mind space. But if I say 11 to the rest of the companies, let's leave out top 10, top 15. That's where a lot of this needs to happen, right? A lot of this needs to happen in those kind of newsrooms. How would you compete if content creation becomes automatic, at least on the low-lying content formats, right? If you have to create a cricket match summary report from a scorecard, someone is going to create it in 30 seconds. Someone is going to take 30 minutes. Where would the consumer go, right? You have to create a end of the stock market summary report. A lot of this low-hanging stuff is going to get automated in a couple of years, to varying levels of accuracy, obviously. And newsrooms need to be ready. Newsrooms need to be ready with the latest and the greatest content formats. Because ultimately the product that you take to market is not just content, it's also the ecosystem in which you're taking that content out, right? think of it like your content or news being the photo and your product being the photo frame, right? Consumers are looking at it together, not separate. And if your photo frame is not good, if your product is not good, then even if your content is good, it doesn't get the same legs. So this is something that comes together, works together, and really moves together.
So if we see AI coming in a bigger way into content creation, which is the low-hanging fruit, which can be done quickly, and so speed is becoming more and more important on the internet. Whoever's first, probably gets the maximum audience. Is the need for journalists for those kind of content going to reduce?
So I would answer it differently, right? Every newsroom, now is becoming reader focused. So there is going to be, I foresee that every newsroom will focus on two things. A part of the newsroom will say, do it fast. And there will be another part of the newsroom that will say, do it in details in the right format. Because go back 2 years time or 1.5 years time, right? We were solving for algorithms, really. Now that intelligence of solving for readers is a totally new ball game where that focus is happening for last 2.5 years in every newsroom. So both of them are important. Both of them will stay because one needs to feed the other, right? Your loyalists will convert to your paid product. How do you get loyalists? Because new users can't consume your paid product. So your non-paid product, the quality of that content has to go up a few notches as well. Because you will get visitors, your visitors have to convert to loyalists, and your loyalists will convert to your paid users. So this entire cycle has to work beautifully, in my mind, right? So none of this is going away. No role is going away, right? But every role gets a new meaning. The way you measure the performance of a piece of content that's written to be on the first side, right? Do it fast side, maybe gets measured on UV, PV, time spent, accuracy. A content that's written on the subscription side is going to be measured not on UVs, not on PVs, but the ability to convert a loyalist into a paid user. And the ability to retain a paid user and to renew a paid user, right? So this entire newsroom mindset has to suddenly change. Now we're talking of two things, not just one.
Interesting. That's a different perspective you're giving, that people are willing to pay for content which is written with the perspective that is different from what is given to the free user as compared to others. People don't really, in India, the paid mindset is limited. Few of the publications think of it as journalism. The journalism that we do is something that people pay for, rather than the research, the analysis, the inputs we give. So, I was speaking to the Hindu the other day. They said our journalism is respected and people pay for it.
Absolutely.
So, it's across. It's not content. They view it as journalism. So the mindset of the media company has to change towards being a tech company and also moving towards being a content company rather than being a journalistic company, if I'm correct.
So I would say all three have to be together, right? It's just not one. The mistake that we do is to say, earlier we were X, now we are Y, but all of these things happen in parallel. You're never X or Y, right? You're always a decent mix of between X and Y.
Sure. So what's the future for monetization of publishers? Because we have Google, Facebook coming up with all kinds of solutions where anyone can become a publisher.
Right.
So is there a future for standalone publishers? Companies like y'all, possibly there's a great future because they'll build that scale. But for smaller, mid-sized companies.
So there are multiple ways how you make money, right? You make money on brand advertising, where you monetize trust, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Users have trust have led to build a brand, and then you do brand advertising somewhere to say, because your premium, people want to buy, associate, brand safe, all of that. Then you monetize on native. In native, you monetize your reach, your frequency, your ability to create content, the quality of work that you can do. And then obviously native goes along with brand, right? You won't do native on an unknown kind of a platform. The third is that you monetize audiences and insights. So across all of these three, every publisher will fit in one of those buckets. right? But every publisher has to move to all three buckets. Because if you operate in only one of these three buckets, some storm is going to hit you at some point in time. If you're only monetizing display, CPM, today you know that the CPM rates are lower and tomorrow they'll be lower, even lower, because inventory will start to flood the ecosystem. Suddenly, some research reports will say voice, video, and vernacular, and everyone will do voice, video, and vernacular. Advertising budgets will not move so fast. Inventory will be flooded, rates will fall, right? So you have to find your own sweet spot on how you operate among all of these three. I think there is money for everyone. You just need to figure it out. Where is the sweet spot, right? And that's when great future lies for every brand and every publisher.
So in terms, you mentioned native. Now, native, what are the different forms of native that are coming out in terms of that you're seeing coming out, evolving?
So native has multiple manifestations, so to say, right? A single article, which is an advertorial, is native. Because native, what does native mean at its root, right? Native means native to the experience of the consumer. If a consumer is on a video platform, then an ad video is native. A consumer is reading a slideshow, then a slideshow advertising becomes native. But that broadly, I will say, that was more like closely what would feel native, right? But broadly, there are advertorials, there are content sections that run, there could be specials that can be done, there could be custom video that gets created, there could be custom online and offline stuff that a brand could do along with the publisher. So native has all of these manifestations, and obviously there is easy money in native and there is difficult money in native, but the difficult money is the right money, because that money will last, that relationship will last. If you can do a phenomenal video that carries the ethos of the brand, the purpose of the brand, and it gets met, then the repeat is more likely, right? Rather than just picking up a bottom of the funnel kind of a project. So there is value across that funnel, and I'm saying there's value at the bottom, there's value at the top, and every publisher needs to move from the bottom to the top, but at least enter somewhere, because that is going to a big line of revenue, frankly.
So how much do you see it contributing? Sorry, to continue. My next question would be, we'll continue with that. My next question would be, how much would you consider native to be part of the content mix would be ideal without really putting off the customer? Continue with what you were saying. Sorry about that.
So I was saying the second part is performance, really, right? And that's the area where traditional publishers have said, oh, it's difficult for us, we can't deliver, so let's leave it. By taking that stance, you are only now competing in the 20% market, because the 80% market is taken by people who can deliver performance. And what happens in a pandemic kind of situation, right? You come out of it and the performance spends grow, because even the buyer is worried that I'm making the right choice or not. And in that case, the right justification is, okay, let me see immediate results, right? Let me not invest for long-term results. Let me see immediate results. And that's when performance comes in. So standalone, partnering with someone, building something out, being a part of someone's ecosystem, any of these things can be done. But you can't put off performance. You can't say that it's not for me, because it's still 70-80% of the budget, or going to be, right? So to say. Now to the last part of your question, I think you said, what is the contribution of
how much
can native be, right? So I would say native has to be the salt and not the dal, right? So to say, you do it too much, you erode the brand. I said you monetize the brand and you monetize the trust, but you monetize the brand and the trust too much, you erode the brand and you erode the trust. So there has to be a nice mix, right? So you have to be careful about the longevity of your ability to do this, the quality of your brand, and the ability to drive value to your customer. So all those things come together. But I think too much of it too soon is going to really kill everything.
So in terms of how do you view the world of social as a as a company, how do you view it? Is it a space you're going to really look at getting some amount of monetization out of?
So social, we have
apart from your user-generated content platforms.
Right. So look at social look at social for either creating a brand for yourself, or you look at delivering content inside a social platform or a closed platform, which is distribution, or bringing users back from the platform to yourself, which is aggregation of users, right? And in either of these models, there is a way to monetize. And the right model depends on the life cycle stage of a publisher. The larger publishers would say, yes, we want social, because social on the social platform users are more engaging. Some may want to create an element of social inside their products so that you get a positive referral mechanism in that users and create usage, right? Some would say, when I distribute, it's good for me because I'm digital native, I'm just born. How would people know about me? If I launch puneetgupt.com, if you see me in the Facebook feed, possibly you'll know about puneetgupt.com, right? So if you are a digital born, digital native, there are things that you would have to do, maybe start on with distribution. But if you're a larger publisher, you want to do a delicate mix of distributing as well as aggregating, because you have your own tech built in to understand consumers, right? And if you only distribute, then you cannot get that intelligence, right? Because you need to find out which user came and consumed what to be able to build for them in the future, right? You lose that when you only distribute, right? Now, coming to one more point, right? How does all of this add up, right? So you do social or you don't do social at a different life cycle stage. Now it's important for every publisher to say what is right for me at my life cycle stage, and that's the most important thing. There's no global yeses and global nos. So everyone have to find their sweet spot. The only risk is that sometimes social, and not just social, I would say distribution in general, pollutes the metric on which advertising is based. So, if I distribute in X platform and that X platform gives me a ComScore credit, so to say, which is my currency, right? Today, buying currency.
Sure.
Right? Then some decisions could be altered. But let's say if I get out of my 100 users, I get 50 from distribution. I cannot run my ad on those 50 users. Right? So it's diluting or polluting that advertising metric. As long as we don't do that, because that also creates a false sense of large user ownership, right? But those users have not come to your shop. They were in a marketplace and they observed your shop. They didn't come to your shop to transact, right?
Okay.
So as I said, both important, but figure out the right mix, but don't let this pollute the metric, so to say, on which the trade of the ecosystem is based on.
So, but your platforms, all your different verticals have tremendous followings on social. So there's a great chance of there's monetization which happens, especially postings and stuff like that.
So there is monetization that happens. There is postings that happen, and at different points in time, you will see us experimenting between trying to get referral users vis-a-vis doing the right mix of native posts, to figure out what creates more virality and more, you have to understand these algorithms, right? No partner manager will come to your newsroom and say, this is my algorithm. How do you figure out, right? Does 10% native post and 90% referral post give you the maximum outcome? You don't know, right? So you have to be experimenting at all times to figure out what works. And that's when I said, while I stress so much on tech, I believe that data is a part of tech, right? How do you understand data and leverage it to your advantage?
It's been interesting chatting with you, Puneet. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say, in terms of any inputs you'd like to give before we sign off?
No, great. Had a very, very interesting conversation. Thanks for inviting me on this, and then hope to be in touch and do more of such discussions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to the audience for tuning in and watching this. And all the best to you and the team at Times Internet. In 2025, $1 billion valuation, probably running into 10 billion. Who knows? All the best to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.